Welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking up, way up. We're going to dive deep into the majestic life, the surprisingly intimate nesting habits, and the downright brutal predatory nature of eagles. You know, as a focused learner, there's often this massive gap between the myths we tell about nature and the hard biological realities. So today, using the sources we've gathered, we're going to bridge that gap. We're looking at exactly what earns these amazing creatures the title of monarch of the skies.
Wings of horizon, wide and free, touching heights no eyes can see. Just think about that for a second. For millennia, eagles have been viewed as these ancient, almost mythical rulers of the sky. As that quote by Sounds of Enigma captures so perfectly, they're often pictured as a crown silhouetted in the falling night, effortlessly soaring through ancient stone and silent cascades. It's this beautiful image of absolute freedom, right? Touching heights our human eyes literally can't even perceive.
But that really leads us to an essential question. What does it actually take to become a ruler of the skies? I mean, if we strip away the poetry and the myth for a second, what is the grounded, hard biological reality of surviving as an apex predator in some of the absolute harshest environments on Earth? Well, as we'll see, it takes way more than just a majestic silhouette. It takes unparalleled physical adaptations, total ruthlessness, and, honestly, a really surprising amount of delicate devotion.
Section 1. Legends of the Sky. Let's get into the incredible physical attributes that make all this possible.
15,000. That's 15,000 feet. That is the staggering distance from which an eagle can spot its prey. To put that into perspective based on our sources, that's like stacking about 6 Burj Khalifas on top of each other. No joke. Their eyes are roughly 3.5 times more acute than ours. Plus, they have this amazing depth perception thanks to their binocular vision, making them absolute masters at locking onto a tiny target while soaring way up in the clouds.
And when they finally reach that target, this is what they unleash. 750 psi. That's the crushing grip strength of their talons, which again, to put into perspective, is about 10 times stronger than a human's grip. Armed with claws that can grow to 4.5 centimeters long, their grip is literally capable of crushing bone on impact. They don't just catch their dinner, they overpower it with a force that's virtually impossible to escape.
Section 2. A global kingdom. Let's look at the staggering diversity across their 60 different species. It's just wild how diverse they are. On one hand, you've got the harpy eagle, right? This deep forest dweller that's perfectly adapted to the dense Amazon canopy, hunting monkeys and sloths. Then, flip the script, and you have the white-tailed sea eagle. We're talking about a massive bird weighing 6 kilograms with a 2.5-meter wingspan, navigating freezing ice floes and the bitter cold northern forests of Scandinavia. Totally different environments, completely different survival strategies, but the exact same apex predator DNA.
Section 3. Delicate nests, devoted parents.
Now here's where things get surprisingly tender. Eagles often pair for life. We're talking bonds that can last 20 years or more, constantly renewed through delicate calling and mutual trust. And their nests, or eyries, are absolute architectural marvels. A harpy eagle's nest alone can be 1.5 meters wide and over 1 meter deep. But before they lay their baseball-sized eggs, the male does something incredible. He diligently gathers the driest reeds and soft grasses to create this delicate little bowl inside that massive stick structure. He's literally papering the nursery so the eggs don't get squashed. From there, both parents share the pretty grueling 8-week burden of incubation, taking turns braving the elements. And once those chicks hatch, the whole family needs about 500 grams of food every single day just to keep going.
Section 4. The brutal first years. The intense struggle to survive.
Because here's the thing. Despite all that incredible physical prowess we just talked about, hunting is really hard. Only about 30% of an eagle's fishing attempts actually result in a meal. That means 70% of the time, they are coming up totally empty-handed. And when you've got multiple hungry mouths crying out for half a kilo of meat every day, well, the math simply doesn't work out.
Which leads us to a pretty grim reality. Even though eagles might lay 2 or 3 eggs, it is super unusual for all of them to make it. Often, the largest and fittest chick will aggressively take all the food, while the runt simply wastes away, or even gets pushed right out. Now, sure, that seems incredibly cruel to our human sensibilities, but impartially speaking, this siblicide basically ensures that the parents can invest all their hard-won energy into one strong survivor, rather than failing to raise 3 weak ones. And fun fact, more often than not, That single survivor is a larger female, since female eagles are actually typically a kilo or so heavier than the males.
So, let's track this journey to independence. Say we have our surviving young female sea eagle. She's going to spend her first 12 weeks completely confined to the nest. Her very first steps outside are called branching, where she's awkwardly navigating nearby tree limbs, really trying to master those massive wings, which, by the way, are often described as flying barn doors. Then the parents bring out the tough love. They literally start with holding food. They'll tease her with meals just out of reach, basically frustrating her into taking flight. Eventually, hunger and sheer instinct take over, pushing her into her very first independent hunting trip.
Section 5. Masters of the Hunt. Let's look at some of these fearless tactics.
I mean, just think about this astonishingly varied apex menu across the different species. We already mentioned the harpy plucking sloths out of the Amazon and sea eagles grabbing wildfowl. But marine eagles? They will swoop down over the open ocean and carry off venomous sea snakes that can be 3 to 5 meters long. That is a seriously high-risk meal. Meanwhile, up in the mountains, golden eagles are taking down foxes and goat calves, and the martial eagle is out there hunting massive monitor lizards on the African plains. They adapt their lethal toolkit to rule whatever environment they're in.
But sometimes hunting isn't even about catching live prey. It's about stealing it. And that brings us to mobbing. Imagine this. It's the dead of a freezing Russian winter. The rivers are frozen solid and food is incredibly scarce. Multiple eagles will congregate around the few tiny open patches of water on the ice floes, and it turns into an absolute free-for-all. You'll actually see a feisty golden eagle, which, mind you, is only about 2/3 the weight of its rivals, literally arm wrestling a massive 9-kilo stellar sea eagle right there on the ice. They're pinning each other down with their talons, throwing punches with those muscular wings, fighting tooth and nail over tiny scraps of fish just to survive the winter.
The really crucial takeaway here is their absolute unwavering fearlessness. When an eagle locks onto a target, they can reach jaw-dropping dive speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. They are hitting their prey like a literal bullet. And they are so bold that there are actually documented encounters of an eagle standing its ground against a full-grown lion. When the lion tries to defend itself with its massive paws, the eagle just relentlessly counterattacks with its beak. It refuses to back down until even the king of the jungle decides it's just not worth the fight and retreats. That is sheer unadulterated audacity. Which brings us to our final thought. We've seen their poetic majesty, those surprisingly tender 20-year romances, and the meticulous, delicate nest building. But we've also seen the ruthless reality of siblicide and their fearless, bone-crushing violence as apex predators. So, as they balance this brutal survival with such delicate devotion, it really makes you wonder, are eagles nature's most perfect paradox? It's definitely a fascinating balance to think about. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you're walking away with a newly grounded, absolutely awestruck understanding of exactly what goes into the making of a monarch.